Hey, what's going on, guys? This is Yacineygo, and today we're going to be going over the best hand traps that you can play post Justice Hunters. So yeah, let's get right into it. As soon as you smash the like and subscribe button and check out the Justice Hunter spreadsheet that I've done in collaboration with Lucas Sacco. It is the very first link at the top of the description box below. Anyways, the first card is Imperm. I think this is a must play because it's one of those good hand traps that is generic, that is also a board breaker, that is a good card to draw for turn. It doesn't turn on like the broken effect of the K9 card, so you can negate Ripper if they're trying to play round roll by not searching with Joe Cool and then by searching for the first time with a Ripper. That hard plays into Imperm, but it doesn't play into Veiler because obviously you can just negate the Veiler. This card does not turn on like the effect of Izuna to special summon itself and then send the Lupus, which can also revive itself back to make a Paradise Smasher on your ass. So at the very least, Imperm saves you from a lot of that degenerate bullshit. But honestly, if the only hand trap that you've got is Imperm, you probably lose the game, and this card is not really good against like the Vanquish Soul cards themselves. So if your opponent's first action is normal summon Raisin or normal summon Mad Love and you Imperm there, and you're living on a prayer, it can easily be, you know, Chain Burger, Chain Caesar, and then you win Neg 1 for absolute free. Next up is Bystials, or I guess Bystial Magnemite. This card is especially good. I mean, especially, like, I'm talking about Magnemite. It's especially good if you're already playing dragons in your deck. So for Vanquish Soul, if you're playing Caesar, then you get to search a Caesar, which is good. And if you're playing Dragon Tail, you get to search Mululu. But apart from that, if you're really not searching anything other than Jewazworm, I think it's not super generic. Obviously, in Malice, it makes sense because you're banishing your own cards. So yeah, it really does depend on the deck that you are playing this in, but it's not like super generic, so I think it really is niche, but it's like a very good, like, niche card. It's not like a niche, but not really good, you know? Anyways, Out of Justice Cycle Reader is unplayable. It's way worse than Bystials and DD Crow. Ash is like anywhere between like the very bottom of Must Play to like the very top of Solid Option, and I actually think this is like one of those weird formats where, because of the fact that people are scared of Paradise Smasher, they may just not play with the Chummies at all and only play like the trap hand traps as well as board breakers in order to not lose to Paradise Smasher, which obviously kind of does make sense. So, you know, with a card like Ash, you can stop Chummies and you can stop Holy Suit to summon from deck, and you can also stop Izuna from sending the Lupus from deck, which is good. So going first is great, but going second, it feels like if it's like one of your only hand traps, or even if you have like Ash Imperm, you can still easily lose going second. So I think this is just like not good enough. But if you are playing the Chummies, the other cards that you're playing always would be Ash and Imperm, just because they're super generic and, you know, they're at least good going first, where some other hand traps, they're not good going first whatsoever, and also sometimes pretty bad going second. Artifact Lancia is still a must-play card because Malice is still a thing in the format, and it doesn't really beat any other deck. Like, K9 Crystron doesn't lose to Lancia, so that's a good thing for Crystron players, I suppose. Dragon Tail can play 5 mana, which is... oh, this card is broken. Obviously, every single, like, in-theme hand trap would probably be in this section, just because, I mean, there's no other section for this, for these cards to be in. So obviously, it's either between this or, like, very niche, because they are very niche, but I don't want them to, like, be low on the tier list, because then people are gonna think, oh, what are these cards doing here? But obviously, if you're playing Vanquish Soul, you're playing 3 Holy Su, and if you're playing Dragon Tail, you're playing 3 5 mana. I think that makes a lot of sense, but I've seen some people consider 2 Holy Su, and that's actually insanely stupid. Please do not do that. But yeah, obviously these cards are cracked. Gamma is like not really good. If you're playing Gamma, it's because you're playing Delta in order to justify the driver in your deck. And it's a level 6. If it was a level 5, honestly, I wouldn't even complain all that much. At least it's like fuel for my K9. But no, it's not, so yeah, that card kind of sucks. Rescue Ace Impulse is also super niche. It's only really playable in like Vanquish Soul because it's a fire monster and, you know, it does some cool things for you, but come on, it's like a worse Fantasme most of the time. And Fantasme, I think, is just, like, much better, like, into breaking boards because it actually is a body on the field, and it can negate, you know, the Chummies and stuff. Sorry, the Imperms and the Book of Moons from Yummy and stuff. So it's, you know, it's a good card. Nibiru kind of sucks. This card is just unplayable going second against most decks. Like, every single deck that I can think of has counters to Nibiru. Like, K9 will just negate it with Ripper, and then Yummy is just going to force it out by threatening, like in the Herald of Arclight, so you're forced to nib way too early, but then your opponent just recovers from it because Yummy doesn't need a lot of resources to achieve a lot, which is very unfortunate for like the player who is utilizing Nibiru. But the good thing about Nibiru is that it can be a good board breaker to use even on your own turn sometimes against Yummy. I've seen some replays where like the opponent would summon so much on your turn that you would be able to nib, and then like all the monsters disappear, and then you can just make a comeback because your opponent doesn't have like any ways of synchro summoning anymore. And also nobody is really predicting you to drop a nib on your own turn. It's completely ridiculous. So yeah, sometimes it can be good. It can also be good for the follow-up play. And I think this might be like one of the best usage for this card against Yummy at the very least, but something to keep into consideration. But I still think I would not main deck this card unless you're playing like 1 for Gallant Granite. If you're playing like Rizal Mitsurugi, that does make a lot of sense. Dominus Impulse, yeah, if your deck can play Dominus Impulse, you've got no excuse not to play it. This card is ridiculously unfair. It's like the most generic broken hand trap against absolutely everyone. Like, it's great going first and second. It's literally a hand trap and a board breaker at the same time. DD Crew is also very niche, but it's honestly not too bad. It's kind of good against Mitsurugi when they go like Kusanagi, recycle back the ritual spell. You can DD Crew there, whereas a Bystial wouldn't do anything. And it's also okay against Yummy. If they've got like the minion field spell in the graveyard, then you can just DD Crew, but then they can also have like Yummy Surprise to recycle back. So they can dodge DD Crow, and also you can't use DD Crow under Herald of Arclight because it discards itself from the hand to the graveyard as cost, so Herald of Arclight obviously prevents that. Chummy Fueros, I think this is like the only Chummy that is like a must-play, just because it covers the most amount of ground. It's pretty good against Yummy, whereas like Pyrelia is useless. Like most of their combos do not give you any more than like 1 draw, whereas Fua, sometimes you do have to give 2 draws into Fua, and you can also like Fua on your own turn and still get multiple draws against Yummy because they play so much on your turn, whereas with Pyrelia that is not true. So I might as well just knock Pyrelia out of the way and put it in solid option because it's still really good against anything like K9, Oriented, Vanquish Soul, Raziel, etc. But it's not good against Malice. Fua has like almost no bad matchup. It's a really, really good card. However, I will say that Pyrelia is actually quite good if you're going first because you can Pyrelia on your own turn and then draw off of the Izuna summoning itself from the hand, the Holy Sue, the Caesar potentially, as well as Nibiru, Fantasme, Bystials. The list goes on, whereas like Fua on your own turn, honestly, it's not really real. It's probably never gonna happen. Anyways, Retelling Sea. Yo, this card is... it's so niche. It's only good against Dragon Tail, and Dragon Tail is like expected to be the least popular deck into Justice Hunters. Out of like all the new options that you got, like K9 Crystron, K9 Vanquish Soul, and Yummy, these decks are gonna see way more representation than Dragon Tail, so why would you have like a 3 of in your side deck that is pretty much only dedicated for Dragon Tail and Memento? That's about it, and also Lunalite. But yeah, those decks are not super popular, so I don't really recommend it. Songs of the Dominators is ultra niche. This card is garbage in like literally anything that isn't Yummy, but it is a good card. It is a decent consideration if you're building your deck around it. Like, you gotta play only Imperm and then Purge and Songs of the Dominators and then play Board Breakers. Otherwise, the card is just gonna conflict all the time. I think Ghost Mourner is garbage, like even worse than Effect Veiler. And then Ghost Reaper, yeah, that's... I think this card sucks. It's so bad. Like, the fact that it's supposed to be a turn skip against Yummy, but then it doesn't even end up turn skipping them. Like, you might as well just play Contact C and just pray to God that they don't play Cross Sheep, because you got higher chances of winning at this point by going for that strategy. But Ghost Reaper, yo, this card will backfire most of the time, practically. It just isn't good. It really just isn't. They've got like natural counters by shuffling back like the field spells from the graveyard into the bottom of the deck, as well as the 2 copies of the Link 1. Or they can just use like Relinquished Anima to Synchro Summon. So yeah, this card, if you think it's good against Yummy, you're mistaken. And also it's really bad against Vanquish Soul and, you know, Crystron and pretty much everything. But it's good against Lunalite, I will say that. Unless they play the Nemesis package, then you lose because they're just going to shuffle back whatever you banish. So it doesn't really do too much. Anyways, Skullmeister is not super garbage, but it's only really good against Mitsurugi, and it's not great against Crystron because they're gonna use so many graveyard effects, and it's obviously not good against Yummy. Nah, yeah, it's not good. Honestly, don't play this card. Ghost Ogre, yeah, that's another super niche card, but it's actually one of the better niche cards that you can play. I honestly wouldn't really consider this like a solid option. I'm not gonna go that far, but, you know, it's... At the very least, you can negate like the Vanquish Soul field spell. That's decent. You can, I mean, to be fair, they might have like the Ripper by that point, so the Ogre can get negated. And that's like the big theme with these hand traps. Like, they have to either be lingering bullshit floodgates, or they have to be, you know, trap cards that Ripper cannot negate. So that's the reason why Impulse and Imperm, they're like really high up on the list. Whereas like pretty much everything else that isn't like super generic and also good going first and second, it ends up being like pretty low. But yeah, Ghost Ogre, I mean, it's a card that you can also use aggressively, which I do like a lot. But, you know, it's once per turn. It doesn't really do that much. If your opponent's first action is normal summon Ice Raziel effect and you got like Ogre in your hand and as your only hand trap, it's pretty much guaranteed that you lose. So yeah, sometimes like you need this with like multiple other hand traps to feel safe. But if it's like your only one, you're completely screwed. Whereas like Fua, if it's your only hand trap, you're not feeling too bad. Or like sometimes even Ash or Impulse if you're playing against like Mitsurugi. Anyways, Ghostbell, I think that this card is like alright depending on how you use it. It can be like an okay-ish board breaker against like Yummy to some degree. Like you can Bell like the Synchro so that they don't revive back 2 monsters. You can Bell Yummy Surprise. So if you got like a Dark Ruler and a Ghostbell, you're actually not screwed. It can definitely do, it can definitely put in some work. So I think this is like pretty respectable, but apart from that, I mean, I don't really think that this card is fantastic. And I wouldn't main deck this card either. I would just side deck it. And it doesn't even cover that much ground when you think about it. It's like, it's really... it's not great against, like, the good decks. Like, it might be good against, like, bad decks. I mean, it's definitely great against Labyrinth. That I can guarantee you that. But apart from that, honestly, I don't know. I don't really remember the last time Ghostbell was, like, a fantastic hand trap. Really just, like, when Labyrinth and Mathmech were really good. That's about it. Contact C. This is like the definition of a niche hand trap. Like quite literally, it's a blowout against Yummy if they don't play Cross Sheep or like Moon, Requiem, whatever, like those kinds of cards. Otherwise, it really does nothing at all. And also, it doesn't really overlap for like any other decks. So honestly, I think that this card is overall just a little copium, not really needed, and also very risky to play because if you play 3 Contact C in your side deck and you never play against Yummy, you're gonna lose a lot of games because you're gonna have like less side deck cards for the dangerous matchups, and there's a lot of like really nasty decks that can exist. I mean, that exist right now. Anyways, Fantasme, yeah, that's one of the good hand traps. I think it's really good against Yummy as a hand trap and as a board breaker, so that's nice. And also, it's good against like Vanquish Soul to some degree. Sometimes they still play it in the mirror, and also Dragon Tail can play this card really well. You draw a lot, so you can really make your hand better. Just shuffle back the useless trap cards, and also draw into like 5 mana or like the missing Dragon Tail so that it can resolve. So that's obviously anything that can draw cards in either Vanquish Soul or Dragon Tail, because those decks, they need card advantage to play. But yeah, those kinds of cards in those decks, they're always nice. So obviously the Chummies and Fantasme, they deserve their positions over here. Mochi Meows, I think this card kind of fell off. It's only really good against like Malice and Memento. Maybe like Yummy to some degree, because they do summon from the graveyard a fair bit. Like on their own turn, it's going to be off of the field spell. And then on your own turn, it's going to be off of the Synchro Monsters and Yummy Surprise. But they can still chain to Mochi Meows with the Yummy Surprise. Even though it's not going to be too bad for you, at least you get rid of it. So you know for a fact that they won't have like that Yummy Surprise to like bounce back your cards, unless they have got like another copy of it. But yeah, I do think that Mochi Meows is just not worth considering at the current moment, because there's not a lot, like enough decks that lose to this card to warrant like wasting a bunch of your extra deck space, side deck space for it. Dimension Shifter is just a one-of, but if you obviously can play it in K9 Vanquish Soul, then you should play it. And in Malice, honestly, I'm not sure. I probably would not play this in Malice, actually. Izuna, yeah, this is actually unlike the other hand traps. I would actually not necessarily play Izuna in every deck. I think it's a solid option depending on what deck you're playing, but you do have to have some level 5 monsters already in your deck in order for this to make sense. Or it has to be a deck that, pretty much like Dragon Tail, where you can't play spells and traps. You have to play monsters so that worst case scenario, you can still use them as like fusion fuel. And also sometimes you just draw like Lupus as your only hand trap, and you can still make a Typhon on your opponent's turn. So it's not too bad. In this context, I think it can be good as a package, but it depends on your extra deck. If you have a lot of space for like Nash Knight and stuff like that, then definitely. Otherwise, may not necessarily be worth it, but it's definitely a really good hand trap. So I think like generically I would put it there. But like the actual K9 decks, no, yeah, it's for sure like a must main deck at 3. Absolutely. Dueling Logbird is a card that I think you at the very least have to have in your side deck. At the very least, just like Ash. Ash, if it's not in your main, it has to be in your side for when you're going first. And Drool, if you're now main decking it because you're going for a Chummy approach or something like that or whatever, for like a board breaker approach on game 1, at the very least have Drool for like the FTK decks, Reizo Mitsurugi, and stuff like that. It's gonna make you feel a little safer. Dominus Purge, what the hell? Dominus Purge is a good option if you're playing, Yummy and Blue Eyes. That's about it, right? Yeah, that's pretty much it. But I mean, it's not a great card. It's not like Dominus Impulse that is like actually insane. This card is just like, it's an okay card. Against Malice, it feels like actual garbage. Like Ash and Purge, yo, oh my god, this is like the worst case scenario. There's like almost nothing that is worth like hand shopping against them. Effect Veiler is like ultra niche. Like it's only really good like in Blue Eyes and Dragon Tail, because in Dragon Tail you can like make an Altherion and then recycle back double Veiler and then double Veiler your opponent again. that's pretty cool. I can't really think of like any other decks that can do like super awesome things like that with Effect Veiler, because at least this is not once per turn. So that's the reason why I said that. But yeah, in Blue Eyes also you can search it with Sage of Ice Blue and stuff like that. And finally, Chaos Hunter. Yeah, this is just not worth playing at all. It just isn't. A worse Chummy Meows. It's more like more specific. It's only really there for like Malice. And are you really citing 9 cards for Malice when there's like infinite broken decks in Justice Hunter's format? Most likely not, huh? But yeah, I think I give also a little too much credit to like the Cyframe stuff. I'm actually gonna have to downgrade them. Maybe I'm being a little too strict, huh? I don't know. Retelling C downgrade? Honestly, at this point, it doesn't really change much of anything at this point. I mean, but honestly, the main takeaway from this video, right, is that the most important hand shops to play are Fua, and then obviously Impulse if your deck can play it. Lancia has to be in your side deck, and then Imperm is a great card. It's the most main deckable hand shop in Yu-Gi-Oh right now. And then for the cards that probably should be in your side deck somewhere, like either a combination of whatever, Pearlia, Ash, Droll has to be somewhere in your deck list. And then Dominus Purge, if you can play it, that's pretty nice, but you don't necessarily feel like you have to play it either, because it's not necessarily like as good as Impulse. And then yeah, whatever, like those cards, it really does depend on how your deck builds, so it's not the same thing. And then yeah, everything here, it's really just to give you an idea, because they don't really do much of anything on their own, really. It's kind of disappointing. And Songs of the Kings is way too niche, even though I will have to say that it is quite respectable in the board breaker version of Yummy. But yeah, that's pretty much it for this video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and let me know what you think are the best hand shops in the current format, and I'll see you guys very soon. Peace.